we expect that having more women directors would lead to companies have better social and environmental outcomes. Think of women directors as an asset. This is a positive story.
Welcome back to International Business Today, where we discuss the most critical issues in international business through the lens of cutting-edge research. At Northeastern University, we're committed to disseminating use-inspired research. As academic leaders in the field of international business and strategy, this podcast is dedicated to helping global business professionals get through the noise. We want you to know the facts and make better decisions. I'm Paula Caligiuri, professor at Northeastern University in the International Business and Strategy Group. With me today is my colleague from Northeastern University, Associate Professor Valentina Marano. Valentina is an expert in multinational corporations. She's focused on companies' social and environmental outcomes. Today we'll be talking about an exciting new study Valentina just published in the Journal of International Business Studies on how women directors shape their firm's environmental and social impact and the role of multinational corporations and their national culture. Valentina, welcome to International Business Today.
Paula, thank you for having me here. I'm super excited to share a little bit of my research.
Oh, it's such an exciting topic, talking about women. Now we're seeing more women on corporate boards. We're seeing more women in executive roles. But what got you interested in this?
Well, as you said, I've been studying multinational corporations and their social and environmental impacts for some time. And I started noticing in the business press a lot of emphasis on the role of women directors in this area and some anecdotal evidence that they are making a very positive impact in this regard. And so with my colleagues, we started exploring a little bit more this idea and developed a research project that allowed us to, I guess, more systematically examine this question. Do women directors really make a difference when it comes to a company's social and environmental footprint? And if we look at this question in a global context, so comparing companies from a multitude of countries, do we see that the local context, cultural context, make a difference in this regard?
So tell us about that. So you're finding that women on these corporate boards are making a difference, but you said you're also finding a cultural difference, a national difference. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and so again, I think it's important to maybe talk a little bit about the design of this study and why, again, looking at the cultural context is so important. We developed this database of over 3,000 corporations from 38 different countries, very different countries that we know, even just from an anecdotal standpoint, have different ways of thinking about the role of women in society. And so our intuition was that different approach to female leadership may have implications for the ability of female directors, women directors, to actually affect change in the social and environmental arenas for their companies.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. So women who are embedded in different cultures might have a differential role to play both in their society but also within their companies. And then once they sit on boards, in the boards, right?
That's right. And so boards are basically teams of individuals, right? And they belong to companies. And these companies are embedded in the national culture of the home country of these companies. And so our expectation was that the general cognitive predispositions, right, of all board members would be shaped by the local cultural environment. So not only would women directors maybe have a different degree of facility in having sort of their voice heard or feeling like they can express their voice on certain issues, and in particular social environmental issues. But also we expected the other board members to interact with them and be able to listen to them and capitalize on their distinctive knowledge in different ways depending on the local cultural context.
That's fascinating. So culture matters, like you said, culture's layered, so it's the layer of the nation, but it's also the layer of gender as well, and their social norms. So do you have any examples of how women actually, as board members, how they change the focus on social and environmental?
Yeah, so I think for us, basically making this claim, right, that we expect that having more women directors would lead to companies have better social and environmental outcomes. That idea really draws on this really rich empirical evidence pointing to the fact that women executives, including women directors, tend to think a little bit differently from their male counterparts.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. How? Like, what are
So, for example, there's rich research showing that women directors specifically, compared to their male counterparts, they tend to have more experience in community service, more experience in philanthropy. They tend to be more receptive to ethical issues in general and ethical codes of conduct, and they tend to be more likely to have advanced degrees. And research shows that these factors actually correlate positively to the likelihood that an individual is going to care about social and environmental issues.
So that's for men and women, right?
That's
that
right.
Those predictors really,
That's right.
really matter.
But again, women having these traits, right, that set them apart from their male counterparts, then the argument is in the context of boardroom dynamics, this would lead to greater likelihood that they would advocate for social and environmental issues, and also that they would have the necessary expertise to tackle these issues effectively. So then when you take this idea at the level of the company, the expectation is, okay, a company that is going to have more women directors is more likely to look at these social environmental issues more seriously, engage with them. And we're talking about things like corporate practices for improving the conditions of employees and workers, making sure that the company's environmental footprint is limited, ensuring the promotion of human rights in global supply chains, and the list could go on.
Right. So is this the case where then companies should be seeking 50% of their board members to be female, or is there a threshold number? I mean, we would love to see, right, 50% of board members being female, but is there a number that?
Well, actually, our research says that on average, even just adding one female board member can lead to a very significant, or what we consider a significant improvement in the company's environmental and social impacts. That improvement is around 2%. And because of everything that we control for in our empirical analysis, actually that's a very significant improvement, something that probably the other board member and executives in the company would notice, especially if the company is keen on wanting to improve its social and environmental impacts.
Right. And certainly it's important for stakeholders, shareholders, and the like, so this is all important. So I am a little curious, do you differentially invest in companies that have more women on the board?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a bias in favor of companies that have, better sustainability record overall.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Oh, it's such an important topic, and it's good to know that there are things companies can be doing, and they're the right things that we should be doing by putting more women on boards. So Valentina, we've been talking so much about putting women on boards and its role in improving social and environmental impact. Why is this so important?
Well, I think that this focus is potentially interesting and timely for at least two main reasons. First, this work speaks to this increasing consensus that boards are really important actors when it comes to defining a company strategy in the social and environmental areas. And second, this research also speaks to the growing evidence that women directors have a very important role to play in this context. And this is because they bring to the table knowledge, expertise, views that are different from those of their male counterparts, and that can help boards focus their attention on social and environmental issues. It's important to know that much of the available research in this area actually focuses on companies from advanced markets. And so with my co-authors, we were excited about expanding this line of inquiry by also looking at companies from other types of economies, transition economies, emerging markets. We're talking about companies from South America, from the Middle East and the African continent, from Eastern Europe and various parts of Asia.
What a powerful finding, right? That this impact of women on boards happens all over the world, regardless of the market and regardless of the culture, even though the outcome is a little bit different, right?
Yeah. I mean, as you said, our findings are robust across these over 3,000 corporations from 38 different countries, defining that, again, women directors can make this positive impact on a company's social and environmental performance. The other important finding is that culture matters. And so this impact, this positive impact, is modulated by the cultural context of these firms' home countries. And so we find that there are certain cultural conditions that foster women directors' ability to make this positive impact.
Tell me about those. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
What about it?
So, for example, we find that women directors' ability to make this impact is strengthened in countries that put an emphasis on the importance of planning for the future, planning and investing for the future, such as, for example, in Thailand, or countries that place emphasis on the importance of more assertive styles of communication for both men and women, such as, for example, in Australia, or in countries like that emphasize the importance of goal performance orientations, like we find in Switzerland.
Boy, I would have thought that this finding would have been unique to countries like those in Scandinavia, right? But you're really finding it all over the world and in different ways and for different reasons.
Yeah.
That's
so
exciting.
But women directors need to be given a chance, right. To make that impact. And so I think, when we talk about practical takeaways from this work, there is the glass half full story of these women directors are very important resources for companies that are serious about wanting to make a difference in the social and environmental arena. And the fact that they're so still severely underrepresented worldwide really gives companies an opportunity to differentiate themselves from the competition if they have more women directors join their ranks. But the other practical implication is on the culture front. If you're a company that is very serious about wanting to make a difference in the social and environmental arena, and you happen to be headquartered in a country that has a more traditional culture, well, you're going to have to probably recognize that kind of bias and take steps to counter it. And so this may involve thinking about implementing change management practices that could, for example, improve communication within the board, improve collaborative behavior within the board. It is possible that these kinds of initiatives may not be sufficient to tackle this cultural bias, but they are definitely a necessary first step if a company isn't to sort of leave on the table these important resources for its success.
Boy, and the outcome of doing this, even trying to do this well, seems like it's so robust that we really do want to give these female directors an opportunity. That would be wonderful, right? We would love to see it. So for our listeners and viewers of this podcast, what would you want them to know and understand and take away from this amazing research?
Yeah, so I would say, again, think of women directors as an asset. This is a positive story. It's a story about women directors really being able to play as, these useful resources for the company because they bring this different perspectives compared to their male counterparts that we were talking about before. They bring different knowledge. They bring different worldviews. They can really help focus your board's attention on social and environmental issues. And second, again, as I was saying before, be mindful of the cultural context of your home country because those cultural forces can really work against these important assets, their ability to make that impact that you probably want.
But there's things we could be doing in organizations, and hopefully our listeners will start to put those in motion. That's wonderful. Valentina, thank you so much for being on today's podcast.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
This is wonderful. And thank you to our listeners for joining us with International Business Today. If you benefited from today's episode, please subscribe to it and share it with anyone who might enjoy this cutting-edge knowledge. If you have any questions or something you want us to cover in the future, please send us a note. We'd love to hear from you.